Welcome to the Reverse Sweep Preview Show presented by USAA Insurance. I'm your host, Katie Bedford, joined by Enable and Pacman. Guys, the third major is almost here. It's going to happen in just a couple days. I'm really excited about this. Do you guys think Toronto could potentially go back to back?
Well, of course.
I think they got to be the favorites. Let me go first, John. No, I'm just kidding. They look absolutely unbelievable, Katie. They're in form. If they make it to the finals in winners bracket, they tie the longest series win streak in the CDL with FaZe. I don't know if it goes back to CDL. I think it's just CDL. If they win the whole event, which they have a great chance to, they break the record.
Ooh.
Like when we talk about, top teams in the CDL's history, FaZe is number one. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone knows how good FaZe has been, especially when they're at their peak. And the fact that Toronto is this close to potentially break the record, they have to be a favorite. Like they're playing lights out, Todd, right now, and it's honestly awesome to see because I don't think anyone saw it coming in the beginning of the year.
No, it's impossible. The cool thing about this is that if FaZe beat Empire, they play Toronto in the second round. FaZe get to protect their own record. Like what more could you ask for?
That is cool, yeah.
Got to make sure they're gonna know. They're gonna have heard about this by the time it comes up, and it's gonna be a talking point. They get to protect
they know
it
right now. They know right now.
They get to protect it, and I love that. Like if you're gonna take a record, take it from me. Don't take it from these bummies. Take it from me. And if you beat us again, I mean, what else can you say? Nothing but respect. You did it. We'll come for it again in the future. But right now, it's yours. And Toronto is a team like right now that looks like they can do it. They're poised to do it. If FaZe keep up that S&D that they've been doing, this 5 in a row. That match is gonna be a banger, right? Like, that is why Toronto ended up winning in the last majors. Their S&D, they just had better teamwork than FaZe in general. Yeah. Right now, this version of FaZe is scary. They're back to being that scary team, and between those two, it's like the Clash of the Titans. Honestly, I know this sucks, but I don't want Dallas to upset FaZe. I want to see that match. I want to see that match for the record, for us, for the entertainment value, to see the top two teams go at it again. I want that match.
And guys, let's take a look at that bracket. As we've mentioned, winners round one, FaZe and Empire going head to head. And I gotta agree with Pacman. I want to see a rematch of FaZe and Ultra. I like what Ian had to say. Like, if you're gonna break our record, break it against us. And you also get the rematch from the grand finals. You can see even Bance, after the 3-0 from FaZe onto OpTic, even Bance was tweeting and saying, yo, that's the performance that terrifies me, that I've had to deal with since BO4. So Toronto giving them the respect. I think we all want to see that. But on the other side of the winners bracket, Mutineers and Thieves will go head to head. One of them will face off against Subliners. And then in losers, a team that we will see down there for the first time, OpTic. They are starting in losers round 2. Gorillas, Surge, Royal Ravens, and Legion will start out in round 1. And the two teams surviving that will face off against OpTic and Rocker. So some really good matchups off the rip, too. And I think especially OpTic going to be one to watch for sure, since they are starting in losers. And top 8. One of the reasons I mentioned OpTic there is because if OpTic is starting in losers and whoever drops down from FaZe Empire is going to end up playing them, I believe, you could get one of these top teams, guys, potentially a FaZe or a Dallas or an OpTic or someone else that could be ending this like worse than top 8. That's really bad.
I mean, it's going to happen, right? It's a certainty that one of those teams is going to finish below top 8. Is it?
Yeah, I think it's top 8 or worse.
Sheesh.
This is why we love competition.
Yeah,
right here. I think that's another reason why the FaZe Empire series is going to be a must watch for me. Not only because I do want to see FaZe win so they can kind of defend their record, but if they do get upset, or even if they win and Empire goes losers, losing team of that series plays OpTic, which is, even with OpTic in their current form, is not a team that you want to go up against early in the losers bracket. It's not. And the fact that one of those three will place that poorly at stage 3, you got to think whatever team it is, they will make a roster change after this event, because we only have 2 more stages. Champs coming up. It's like you don't have time anymore to have a rough weekend. everyone's got to be playing lights out from here on until the end of the season. You want to get hot at the right time. So it's going to be an insane major. I can't wait for it.
I mean, this is champs time to me, right? You're starting to lean into it right now. It's like right here, right now, this is when you have to be in form. Obviously, Dallas has the team change. OpTic's not in form. Those are the two teams most likely to be in that spot where, after that match, it can mean a whole lot of change for both of those teams. Like you are championship level teams. Yeah, it could be blockbuster time. You have to make something happen because there is no more time after this. There's no time to start working on a team. There's no time to start building. There's no more building phase. We're going into champs. It's about to be over. We're about to be into the next title. Like it hits you quick. It hits you really quick. Yeah. And this major is huge for all these teams, for every team, obviously, but for these top championship level teams who aren't competing at that level right now, they're not up there with Toronto right now. That's where they want to be. It's huge for them because now it makes it aids their decision one way or the other, pushes them in a direction, and they got to make a move.
So then who do you think you look at? So we've talked, the potential of FaZe, Dallas, OpTic. I think FaZe probably least likely within that, could get top 8 or worse. OpTic, Dallas, who do you think's more at risk of making another change? Well, in Dallas's case, another change, but in OpTic's case, a change at all. Who do you think Pacman is more at risk here?
I still think that Dallas was always intending on making another move regardless, but OpTic is the one that is, to me, more at risk because I'm not really sure what they would do. Like, because of the way their team is in particular, just them, where you have certain players that are actually undroppable, it's like, do you move Dashy because he's the one struggling? Do you move Envoy because you can get the best pieces back for him? Because that's what I would do personally. I would try to make a trade for him and try to get pieces. Do you get someone like Slasher, who maybe hasn't had the best year but always has the potential to be a champion again? I don't know what you do, but I know that their moves are more limited than other teams. So it puts them in a really tough spot. I'm more worried for them because they also like to bring in certain people for their fan base and the content and all that. Their moves are just much more difficult than every other team's. So it worries me for them.
Yeah, I don't want to say it all the time about OpTic doesn't need to change, yada, yada, yada. But I would be more worried about them, like John said, just because with Empire, right? Everyone kind of is assuming that fellow is just a placeholder, which I mean, it sucks. I don't want to discredit him because he has been playing good, but I think when it comes to him and Empire, he realizes what's on the line, and so he is going to do everything that he possibly can to make sure Empire has a great major. He seizes this opportunity that he has. And on OpTic, I mean, if I was any of those players, I don't think any one of them would feel like, ooh, I'm on the chopping block, right? Because they all basically seem untouchable. They're undroppable. But it's like, you get kicked to the curb this early in stage 3.
Yeah.
I don't care about content, none of that, about the loyalty. I've always respected that from Hex, but that's embarrassing, and that's embarrassing for the players as well. And it's just so hard because if you try to trade any one of them, Scump is for sure off limits.
Yeah.
For sure off limits. But do you trade a player like Envoy, like John said, who maybe you could really build pieces around? Dashy. But those are two young, very talented players. Is it time to move on for someone who's been around the league for a long time, informal, and try to get an upcoming AR or whatever the case may be? It's so hard because you just don't know which direction. There's not a clear-cut person that would need to be moved. So I would definitely be worried if I was OpTic, because if they don't win, they're going to be in a rough spot.
Yeah, and it's clearly tricky too if you talk about Envoy, Pacman, because they call him the prince for a reason. They're clearly trying to prepare him to be Scump's successor whenever he retires. So then suddenly, you're dropping a 0.47, granted ping and everything else with that series against FaZe. But yeah, you talk about potentially trading him. So then what happens to that entire narrative? And then suddenly there's not some successor for Scump.
A successor will always be there. I mean, he's the easy one to talk about because he's been so good. He's just been so good. And that Scump's core before the content creation and all that, Scump is just a beast. So, right, he's just a really dominant player. he was the one that was the hard carry for OpTic for years and years and years and years and years when they had Nade. And Nade was the king of content. Scump was the one putting on and getting the team over the hump, to be honest.
Hard carry Nade.
Right. Yeah. Right. So Envoy's a beast. So if they pick up another beast, they can transform another beast in the king of content if that's what it needs to be. Dropping Envoy is not an easy decision because I think he's been the best player for them for 2 years. It's just, I just feel like he's the one that you can get the most return for. And obviously their team needs to change. Who knows what's going to happen? If they lose. They could come out in this major and go crazy and win. Who knows? But I don't know. The only time we've ever seen OpTic get quote-unquote embarrassed, there was one event where they got 16th or something like that, and that's when they first made the switch. They picked up Octane and Zenny. That was after they got embarrassed. Like, that was a horrible performance. And before that, it was champs performances. The champs performances were at the end of the year. So they get 7th or whatever it is at champs, and then who cares, right? We just suck it up and we're in the next title with the same team. This time it's gonna be a little bit different. If they lose in this spot, it's embarrassing, but they still have to go forward in the season, and it's just a really tough spot.
Yeah, you can't just be like, okay, it's over with, just forget about it, move on. No, I think that's a great point, Pacman. And also great point, reverse sweep is presented by USAA Insurance. They make it easy to insure all of your stuff like rigs and gear, and they have your back. Insurance provided by United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas. Eligibility restrictions do apply. Now let's move on. I want to talk a little bit about ARs, right? And an interesting stat that I was handed is that 8 out of the top 10 KDs right now in this stage are ARs, Simp and Hydra being the SMG exceptions to that rule. So do you guys think, when you look at these teams, when you look at this major, that ARs are going to dictate it and it really kind of lives or breathes on whether the folks like Arcides, Formal, and so on have standout performances? Ian, what do you think?
Yes and no. I think it really just comes down to the specific series, right? And how the teams match up. But ARs always are just in the top 10 when we're talking about KDs. That comes with the territory of being that main AR player. I still think it's subs impact the game. They have such a higher impact of if your team's going to win or not. I will say the Krig, especially from what the pros talk about on the 60 hertz when they play on those servers, is unbelievable. They all say it's the best gun in the game, but there's a lot of great AR players, like S tier AR players, and I feel like you can't say the same for subs. That's why it's so important to have such a great sub duo. I mean, you look at FaZe, you look at NYSL now with Hydra, you look at Toronto. So for me, it's still subs. It's still subs. ARs, you know what you're going to get out of them. A good AR is going to be in the top 10 KD. No, there's just no way around it. But as far as impacting the game, which John's probably going to pick up on that, it's just not the same. No,
the subs out there trading, going 1-for-1. Sometimes he dies, but he's opening up the map. The AR gets posted up, gets a kill, gets a second kill, and he's the one with the 1.2 KD. That doesn't mean that they're doing more for the team. They're just doing what they need to do. If the AR is not doing that, it's a problem. The sub is out there sliding on for you and really putting his life on the line and making the right plays and opening up the map for you. He actually is the one that should be helping you lead on rotations to get those AR players out of their power spots. Because if you don't move them out of their power spots, they're going to go off. And then that is what's scary. You, like in the past, we've seen, I guess we used to see Octane do that when people like Ian would go out for him. Ian has a .91 or whatever it is, and then now he's posted up, and because he is super talented, you have him posted up where he needs to be, and all of a sudden he's going on streaks. And that's a sub player's role, and the better ones do it more consistently. It's actually crazy that Simp and Hydra are in the top 10. Like, it's actually nuts. Those guys are just phenomenal.
That goes to show how great they've been playing.
No, I actually like that. Great point, guys. As we know and as we've said, KD isn't necessarily everything, and I think that was a good explanation of why. Yes, ARs are there, but you kind of would expect them to be there. And now I do want to take a look at our last week, the final week of the stage, and in a unsung heroes, what we can expect from them going into the major, our third major of the year, with Got You Covered, presented by USAA Insurance. Level up your gear protection with USAA Insurance, and maybe these teams leveling up with a player to watch. So, Ian, I'll kick it off with you, unless you want to throw it over to Pacman first. But who is your player to watch going into the major?
Okay, I'll go first, Katie. I was going to pick someone on OpTic. But you know what? I've been on them all damn day. So I'm gonna go. My player to watch for the major, it's got to be Hugh. He's coming into a brand new team for him, a team that was very successful. They looked like they were on the right track to really be a top team, and then they ended up benching TJ for him. He had, in stage 1, Hugh was probably the best player in the game, best sub in the game for sure. Stage 2, he was very average, and he got let go by Empire, so he kind of has a chip on his shoulder. He needs to bounce back and perform to that level. Also, because you want to, if you're LAT, you don't want everyone to be like, why would you make this move? It's not paying off. You made this move and you got worse. So Hugh needs to perform. I think he's going to. But more importantly, if they want to win, Hugh needs to be great. I think Kenny's been great, top 3 AR in the game. And if they could get that sort of same consistency out of Hugh, who's going to be their aggressive sub, I just think that they'll be a very scary team to go up against.
Okay, I like that answer. Mine, I'm going to go to his ex-teammate, actually. I'm going to go to Shotzi. And that's because Shotzi hit a point last year where he was the best player in the world. And everyone was saying it. His movement was top tier. His gameplay's top tier. His smarts. He was up there. He was doing his thing. He hasn't hit that point yet. Now, I only bring up Shotzi. He's playing fine. But if he's gonna take Dallas to that next level, especially with their current form and their current roster, it's gonna have to be him. He's gonna have to be the guy that makes all the difference. Because they play FaZe first, and if they lose that, then they likely play OpTic, right? This is a tough road to hoe. They need the guy that's a superstar talent on their team to actually start playing like a superstar. He needs to get back to that point where he's considered the best for Dallas to hit that next level. I'm looking at Shotzi. I think he can do it. He's clearly one of the best players in the world. He's clearly just a next level talent. It doesn't matter what game he's on, what game he touches. It's just time for him to hit that, and I'm waiting to see it. I'm excited for him.
For me, I have to look at Clayster, and the reason I say this is because, they didn't win a map at the second major. They kind of went down in flames when we had they got bodied. We had big expectations for him, but particularly, I felt like I got to watch Clay give up, like visually, like, because, every time anything happens with subliners, they zoom in on his camera and stay there the entire time. You got to watch Clay. I felt like I watched the light die in his eyes. Like, I could visually see when he just kind of like checked out of a series, and I want to see him power through that in this major. If they win a series, or if they lose a series, if they lose a really close hard point or an S&D, or maybe they can't clutch up in another raid control, I want to see Clay kind of be able to still bring those vibes and that composure to get his team amped up. We know how hyped Clayster can be when he's in that right mindset. So for me, he's my one to watch for subliners. I think this is a big test for them this major, and I want to see him be able to kind of be that leader for them, even if things aren't going their way. And on that note, some bold predictions, gentlemen. Maybe it's one of the people you mentioned. Who knows? Maybe it's someone else. But any bold predictions for this major? Pacman, I will start with you. Something spicy.
I did believe I said that NYSL was going to make it to the winners finals at least, right? I think I said that. I'm pretty sure I said that. And he was like, no way. And then they started going ham.
I don't remember that.
I think I remember that. I think I'm going to have them going straight to the grand finals through winners. I believe that they will beat either FaZe or Ultra in that winners finals, and they'll end up in the grand finals. Whether they'll win or not, depend on which of the teams comes back through losers. I feel like if Toronto's the team that comes through losers, I don't think that they'll win. But if it's FaZe, I think that NYSL will pull out the victory.
Ooh, all right. That is a little spicy.
For me, you know what? I'm going to go the other way. I'm not going to be an OpTic hater today. Lars, I have OpTic Gaming making a run through losers bracket. Falling just short. I don't see them getting to the finals, but I have them getting 4th place. I think it's bold prediction.
Okay, we're just saying stuff. You trying to
get it doesn't happen. I'm just like, it's a hot day. What? But if it does, I'm like, yeah, I'm nice like that because I was cooking. For some reason, I think they're at a point now where they've hit rock bottom. Right? I think we kind of saw all of the stress that they're dealing with their last tweets after that FaZe match, right? Yeah. It seems like none of them have confidence. And they're kind of at that point where like they're making excuses, and I think Hex or Sender, someone from the OpTic camp after that whole day, that whole debacle, kind of just put it to him straight and was like, yo, we're ass. We need to get our shit together. Like, I don't care about the content or any of that. We need to be a top team. And I think it's going to kind of bring some life back into OpTic. I think you're going to see a different OpTic in this major. They're not going to win, but I think they're going to make a pretty good run and gain that confidence back that they lost. Look like that team in the beginning of the game. But they got their swagger, like they're just ego challenging everything. They could do their thing. That's what I think is going to happen.
Well,
if it doesn't, I don't care.
That's bold. That's bold. They haven't gotten top 4 at a single major, and they've been in winners.
You said bold. You said bold predictions.
I mean, predictions something that you think might come true.
I think Atlanta FaZe is going to be the finals. That's all.
Okay. I don't have a bold prediction for finals, but I think Thieves are going to take down Florida and then knock Subliners into losers. I think that when we saw that Subliners 3-0 in that kind of debut series with Hook, I don't think we're going to see that again. And I think that Thieves are especially going to have kind of that fire to want to come back and kick Subliners where it hurts, get them out of winners early. So I don't know. I think you're going to see a rockstar performance from Hook. And I think you're just going to see an energy from Thieves and a drive, and that's going to end up with them taking out Subliners. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think they're going to be able to get it done this time and send Subliners straight down to losers. I don't know what happens from there. Maybe Subliners go all the way to the grand final, but I think Thieves will beat them in winners round 2.
I like that. That's a good take. That might be the best one. That might be the best one.
We'll see. Because my major prediction last time was completely wrong.
Who's a better sub duo, Hook and Venom, or Hydra and Asim?
Hydra and Asim, 100%.
Yeah,
Asim's the best
right now. Yeah,
He's
right
incredible.
now. Yeah, it's got to be Hydra and Asim.
I don't get that.
It's close though. It's not like it's lopsided, but
I think Hook's the new, right? That's his name. Like, I think we're gonna see that. So.
I think Venom, if they wanted to really compete, I think Venom would need to kind of improve.
Venom is the guy that I feel like he impacts their win-loss more than any other player on their team. Like when he's playing really well, it's different out there for them. And then when he's struggling, obviously it's like, and that's the role. But sometimes it looks really, really tough out there for him. Really tough.
But I think they got it. I'm sticking with it. I think they're going to knock Subliners out. And I want to look a little bit ahead, about a month down the road to the 4th major. It is going to be on land. That was announced. No spectators, just league staff and the teams. But how do you guys feel about that? Going back to land, do you think it changes things? Do you think we're going to see perhaps some old players who prefer land and are quite vocal about preferring land come back by the time the 4th major is here? What do you guys think about?
Well, what do you mean by come back? Like the players that are benched?
I don't know, maybe a Slasher. Slasher has made it very clear that he hates online COD. You have people like Silly last year who mentioned that it's really difficult for him to kind of zone in when he's doing online games. So do you think maybe a resurgence of some of those players?
Everyone in the history of time has said they're better on land. It's just not facts. I actually do believe in Silly being better on land and Austin, but you know why? They're West Coast. This is just a fact. Ian, you played on both coasts. Yeah. Tell me it's not harder to play from the West Coast.
It's night and day.
Yeah, it's not even close. Everyone thinks they're better on land. Not true. I think a lot of the stuff that happens would still happen on land. FaZe would still be dominant. Toronto would still be really, really, really good. They'd probably still be the best team in the world. I'm excited for land. But at the same time, I don't think that it's going to have this drastic impact that people think it's going to have. But
it's wishful thinking, perhaps.
It's cool.
At least for some
I think it's cool to get back to where I think we're towards some normalcy, though.
I kind of agree with. I mean, I agree with John, where everyone does think they're just the hottest shit when it comes to LAN. No, it's not true. There are some expectations, but I will say we're in a very interesting point because there's a lot of professional CDL players that have never competed on LAN.
That's true.
Right?
A lot of the rookies, true, yeah.
A lot of
That's
them,
true.
and people love to bring up, you know, the rookies from the S&D scene or just the challenger scene that are doing great, right? The Simp, the Abizis, the Shotsies. There's a lot of players that have had, you know, if it was a draft, they'd be #1 pick, top 5, and then they busted. You know, like they were just not good on LAN, and it's but no one talks about them. I think that there's a chance that we could see a lot of these young players kind of be exposed. Now, obviously, you can't just write them off after one event, but at the end of the day, and there isn't an audience there aren't fans, Katie, but if they continue moving forward, right, getting back to that LAN environment to maybe have fans come back, I think there's a good chance that you will see some of these guys who are, you know, competing in the CDL kind of fall out. I do. And it's not anything against them. I just, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
That's definitely true. And it also, this is a weird point, but for anyone that's competed on LAN, it also kind of depends on the style of setup they have. So how do I explain this? Sometimes, at least back in the day, you'd have setups that were kind of back, like facing each other. So you could literally look and see the opponent across from you. And the reason I bring that up is because when you die online, you just kind of die, right? But when you die on LAN, sometimes you have certain types of people who get up and like, they'll let you know, like, you suck. I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
Name X player who hasn't played. You suck, and that affects certain people differently.
Suck, Pacman.
Yeah, okay, fine. You suck, Pacman. Like, it affects certain people differently. For me, it would make me laugh. For some people, it actually affected them negatively. Like it,
right?
And for some people, it gets them hyped up. Like, okay, now it's my turn. Like that's how I feel like Clay has always been. I'm gonna get in your face. You get in my face, I'm gonna get back in your face. And then there's also styles where you've been in glass booths super far apart, where it doesn't even really matter. You're playing on LAN, except for, you know, the connection. And where you're separate, I don't know how it's going to be, but there's different styles of LAN, and depending on how it's going to be, since it's probably going to be a lot smaller space, there's going to be no spectators and all that, it could affect people differently.
Ian, sorry, I just want to ask really quick, Ian, and this might lead into your thought, but how did you like LAN? What was LAN like for you since you were playing up until recently?
I was cold-blooded back in my heyday, Katie. It does lead into what I wanted to say. I always enjoyed it more though. I just because I love. I'm not gonna be that guy that, you know, it's like, oh, I was never nervous. You know, I was cool. I got nervous from the first time I competed to the end. Before every single series, a little anxious. But then in that moment where you lock in, where the game starts, you're not focused about the crowd. You're not focused about the noise, the lights, whatever. I loved that moment. Like that's what I lived for. You can't replicate that. So I always loved LAN for that reason and felt more comfortable. Because when you're in your bedroom, you know, it's boring. You got the lights off, you know, you like John said, you get shit on, you get shit on, no one's saying nothing, you know, it's not hype, like no energy. And that's why I do think we could see some of these players get exposed. It's not what the pros say. I haven't felt that way in a long time where it's like, oh, you're just better online because your internet. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I just think at the end of the day, when you're a professional in something, competing in whatever, there's some people that can handle the pressure, and there's some people that can't. And so maybe not when there isn't a crowd, right? And you know, you're not playing on a station and OpTic Gaming's playing a different series and you can't hear your teammates. Because you just hear the it's been there multiple times. You just hear the OpTic chant. But there's people who they can't handle it. When pressure's at its highest, they don't do well. And I think that will happen, unfortunately. I think there's going to be some players, some rookies that excel with that. You know, they might be better on LAN than they looked online.
But some won't.
But some won't.
I mean, that's almost a guarantee.
That's how the cookie crumbled. Yeah, that's just, I'm not going to say names because I don't know. You got to wait and see, and you got to give them more than one event Thing is like, you're cutting it close. You know, if they go to stage 4, Katie, and they get smoked, you got to think maybe Slasher does get an opportunity, because everyone knows how good Slasher is when it comes to LAN, especially when pressure's at its highest at an event like Champs, you know? So it'll be interesting. It will. I hope all the new kids in the scene do great, but they're going to get exposed. Some of them will most definitely.
Well, that will perhaps be the test. And who knows, Enable and Pacman in our next preview show might be talking about some of those folks who, as Ian said, got exposed, what rookies who stepped up to the challenge on LAN for the major, and obviously still a ways down the road. But we are very excited to see what happens then. And of course, what happens at this major, the third major, Toronto FaZe. Will one of them be crowned victor, or will it be someone like Thieves, Subliners, or maybe another team that's a bit of a dark horse? We'll have to wait and see. That's it, guys. The major just around the corner. Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for more Reverse Sweep once the major wraps up.